Hey there, guys. All right, today we are back with some more potential history, and this time Joe Beyrle and his story that puts fiction to shame. Now, I'm sure I've probably heard of this story, but I do not know it off the top of my head. Before we dive in, make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. I would love if you joined the Discord and followed me over at Twitch. And if you cannot check me out live on Twitch, which is pretty much all of you, I know my analytics, motherfuckers. I know a good chunk of you, though, have gone over and followed me, but you don't watch me. Kind of rude if you ask me. Go follow me. Go follow my gaming channel. That's where I upload the Twitch VODs, and also put up clips there from Twitch, in the YouTube Shorts thingy, which is a good time. It's funny. Anyways, got nothing else to say here. Go ahead and dive right in.
Welcome to the Salty Spittoon. How tough are you?
How tough am I? How tough am I?
Jumped into Normandy on D-Day.
Yes, so?
Got captured, escaped, survived torture, escaped again, joined the Red Army, liberated my own prison camp, survived wounds and met General Zhukov, went home and was married in the same place my own funeral was held.
Fuck.
Right this way. Sorry to keep you waiting.
This video is sponsored by Philo, an online streaming service with over 44 channels and a wide array of movies, available on any device including all a call, because I have the perfect story for their show, my all-time favorite World War II story, The Unbelievable Tale of Joseph Beyrle. Born in Michigan in
I guess that's how you can pronounce it. I'm sure it's right, but
1923, Beyrle, like many World War II veterans, grew up trying to get through the Depression, living in a house with grandparents that
I too am trying to get through the Depression.
were direct immigrants from
one.
Bavaria.
Well, I'm sure at the same time they were dealing with the Depression up here too.
Growing up with both German and English in his household. Still in high school when Pearl Harbor was attacked, the very athletic Beyrle turned down a scholarship to play basketball at Notre Dame and joined the 101st Airborne. He earned the nickname Jumpin' Joe because he was very athletic and his friends would pay him to do some of their
Well, he did play basketball, so I assume he should be able to I'd assume he has hops.
training jumps while impersonating them because they didn't want to land wrong and break their foot or something, and he had no problem taking people's money to do this.
Badland.
While in training, he also specialized as a demolitions expert. Once he made it to England after his training was complete, he was selected for a few volunteer jumps in May and April of 1944, where he covertly dropped into occupied France to deliver $250,000 in gold to the French resistance as funding from the Allies. After making it back safe both times, his first large-scale combat jump was with the 101st Airborne during Operation Overlord.
Can we talk? Hold on. Let's first talk about the fact that this motherfucker did 2 successful paradrops into occupied France. Paratroopers do not have, as far as I'm aware, maybe this only applies to the D-Day invasion paratroopers. As far as I'm aware, paratroopers did not have a good return rate alive.
One of the biggest problems for the paratroopers in this operation, though, was that because of all the anti-aircraft fire, the planes dropping them off were going too fast and sometimes too low to where everybody got scattered all across their drop zones, far from where they were supposed to be. Joe had to jump out of his plane exceptionally low at about 400 feet and landed on top of a church at Saint-Côme-du-Mont and was able to slide down off the side into a cemetery and run off into the night under German fire. After this, he was able to blow up a German power station, and while walking towards it,
Just all by him fucking self. He just fucking was just casually like, yeah, I blew up a German thing. Just by myself.
his objective of 2 bridges that his unit was supposed to take, he crawled through one of the infamous giant French hedgerows into a German machine gun nest and was promptly captured. And thus begins one of the most amazing and incredible POW stories of the war. After he was captured, his tags were taken and given to a German soldier who, in an American uniform, was going to attempt to mingle with American troops in some kind of Otto Skirtsny-style behind-the-lines thing that ultimately failed, resulting in American soldiers finding his tags and listing him as dead. That becomes important later. After this first capture, he was marched with other POWs to a holding area in Carentan, where he received a minor wound from advancing Allied artillery. In the chaos, though, the prisoners got separated from their handlers, and as a German patrol came back to collect the POWs, he and a few soldiers made a run for it and got away, wandering the Normandy countryside for a few hours, looking for friendly troops until they were recaptured again. He was then sent to St. Lo, where he survived another Allied attack, this time in bomber form, before he was taken to a monastery and questioned heavily about his German heritage and why he was fighting with the Americans. About the incident, he said, "I was interrogated 20 to 24 hours a day. They were trying to get all the usual questions answered. Why me as a German was I fighting for the Jews, Roosevelt, and Morgenthau against my own people? Sometime during the questioning, I called a German officer an SOB and woke up several days later in a hospital with a big headache and a bashed head, and later I was taken back to the monastery." In reading this, I'm amazed at how nonchalant he is about the whole thing.
Mad lad.
After this, he was put into a forced labor unit repairing railroad tracks around northern France, having to dodge even more friendly bomber raids on a regular basis. After that, he was taken eastward through France, ending up in a warehouse outside of Paris, and eventually in Stalag 11A in Limburg, Germany, where he was finally able to write home, surely to the surprise of his family who had been told he was dead, and was registered as a POW, where this jewel of a photo was taken. This is the face of a man whose captors should fear him. Shortly after this, he was marched eastward towards Stalag 3C. Being the person that he was, though, Joe was not able to sit out the rest of the war and quickly tried to figure out ways to escape. His first escape attempt, with two other POWs by the names of Brewer and Quinn, was pulled off by bribing the German guards with cigarettes provided to them by the Red Cross and boarding a train headed for Poland, where they would meet up with either the Red Army or the Polish Underground.
Absolute mad lad.
Their hopes were dashed quickly, though, as when the train stopped, they realized they had boarded one headed for Berlin, in what I imagine had to be the biggest oh shit moment in history, and they were soon found by the Gestapo, where they were tortured and interrogated for the next week. It was decided that they were going to be shot as spies, but before this happened, the army reclaimed them as POWs. Once back in the hands of the German army, they were sent back to Stalag 3C. However, upon returning, they heard on a contraband radio that they kept secret about how the Soviets had smashed through Army Group Center and were getting fairly close to the camp where they were being kept, really only a few days walking distance away. So the trio attempted their escape again, this time sneaking out in empty food containers leaving the camp. However, on the way out, the cart or whatever they were on tipped over to where they had to make a run for it, with only Beyrle getting out alive, heading towards the Russian lines. After some walking, he ran into a Russian tank unit where he identified himself as an American, and instead of asking to be taken to the rear and trying to head home after his long harrowing journey, the mad lad asked if he could fight alongside them. Apparently, 3 combat jumps, multiple prison camps, torture, and a narrow escape weren't enough for him, and he had to see what the other front of the war was like too before he was done.
The more brutal front, too.
Mad lad!
The first Russian officer he asked promptly said no to his request, but upon going to the battalion commander, who was actually the rather famous Alexandra Samusenko, the only female tank commander of the 1st Guards Tank Army, who became well known for exploits at Kursk, his request was granted and he was able to fight alongside them. And apparently it was a very informal kind of shrug and a nod from everything that I've read. Just kind of like, oh, you want to kill more Germans? Yeah, okay, sure, hopping back. Joe fought with him for about a month, putting his demolitions expertise to good use, and freed his previous POW camp Stalag 3C in the process. He was later wounded, though, and taken to a Soviet field hospital, where none other than Field Marshal Zhukov came to see him after hearing the strange story about an American fighting in his army. I swear to God, this whole story
What the fuck, man? I got no words for this. I feel so bad that I got nothing to say, but like, I'm just like, what the fuck?
reads like World War II fan fiction. It's just too much.
No, this is one of those stories where it is so it's so insane that it does sound fictional, right? And that's kind of why what we see a lot of the times in historical fiction or in movies that say like inspired by history or whatever, and then we're always left like wondering the real thing is much more cool, is so much cooler, right? Part of the problem with that and why it's true that it's a good amount of the time the historical thing is cooler is that probably the executives and the writers themselves may read the real historical thing that happened and be like, there's no way a general audience is going to believe that that happened, so we have to make it more realistic. Right? Like no one would believe the luck that this man had unless they did the research themselves, and general audience is not going to do that research, right? So that's why I do feel a little bad about people that have to write historical movies and stuff like that, or produce them even, because it's like You got to consider the general audience, otherwise you won't make your money back.
After telling his tale to Zhukov through an interpreter, he was ordered back to Moscow to be taken home and given a piece of paper the following day by one of his officers who told him, "You don't need to know what it says, but it'll get you any place you want to go." And he found his way back to the US Embassy. There were still a few more issues for him, though, as when he got to the US Embassy, both the Americans and Soviets were suspicious of him because, according to their records, Joe Beyrle was dead since his tags had been found in Normandy, and he was kept under guard until his fingerprints were able to be used to verify his identity out of fear of him being a spy or something. Joe returned home in April of 1945 and was able to spend VE Day with his family.
No,
When he came
nice.
home, he found that because they figured he was dead, there had been a full service for him in the town's church, and he would later get married by the very same priest who did his wake in the very same church that his funeral was in. Joe remained active in veterans organizations throughout his life and was recognized by both President Clinton and President Yeltsin in 1944 at the 50th anniversary of the D-Day landings, completing the strangest medal set of any person in World War
Yeah, even in old age, he has that face of, I'm ready to kill more fucking Nazis.
II. Joe passed about 10 years later, but was around long enough to contribute to Thomas Taylor's biography about him. Thomas Taylor, who was the son of General Maxwell Taylor, who was, in the final twist of this crazy and incredible
way.
story,
No.
the commander of the 101st Airborne Division, Beyrle's old unit while he served in World War II. Please, for the love of God, someone make a movie about this. Thank you to Philo for
Here's the thing, right, with making a movie about that. As I was saying, they're going, no one's going to believe the insanity of this. The general audience there's going to be people that go into it and just being like, there's no way that happened or whatever, right? It comes across more as fiction than it does reality. 'Cause it's just so insane. It's just so crazy. And it's like, it'd be a damn good movie. But will people that don't know the story be able to buy it, right? You can tell them, you can tell the audience, like, yeah, this is real life. But there's still going to be that in the back of their mind, like, this seems still super fantastical, you know? And it sucks that's the way things are. But, well. Well, that was Joe Beyrle and his story that puts fiction to shame by potential history. A great video by Potential History, as always. I hope you guys enjoyed as well. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.